Hey everyone, my name's Courtne Marland, and just to give you a little bit of context before I start this video, I've been building agencies for a long time. I've built and scaled 2 agencies. I sold my previous agency after getting it to just over 90K per month, and now I'm building GrowthTube. On top of that, I also run an education company called Systems and Profit, where we build systems with other agency owners to help them make more profit. So safe to say, I've seen hundreds of agencies and honestly, probably thousands of niches and services combined. So I think I'm very, very qualified to answer this question. But I promise you that the answer I'm about to give you is most likely not the one you expect. So let me jump into my screen and give you the answer. All right, welcome to my computer. So to give you this answer, I first want to establish a couple fundamentals that I think most people don't either understand or conceptually take into context, right? So the first thing is you need to understand that every niche works, okay? Like this is the primary thing that I think people forget. There is no magic niche. Everyone thinks that there's these massive trends that you should be jumping on, like, hey, I should be doing TikTok ads, or hey, I should be doing Facebook ads, and then it's this and then it's that. And you are correct. At certain times in the year and as things change, there are evolving trends, right? If you jumped on TikTok ads way before TikTok was taking off, yeah, you would have made a killing. But again, these are all anomalies, and what we don't want to do is bet the entire company on a trend, right? Because trends come and go just as quickly as they rise and fall, right? So every niche works, at least if you want to get to 7 figures, right? When you want to get to like 8 figures, that's a different story. Sometimes you need to position yourselves. But honestly, for most of you, probably getting to 7 figures, which is about 100K per month, is the goal. I have friends that run agencies in the weirdest niches possible, like landscaping, fencing, roof installation, and they all run at 7 figures, right? So every niche works. So the key to understand here is if you are failing to get results, the problem is you, not the niche, right? There is no magic niche. There is just a good formula to find the correct niche, which I'm going to go through now. And also, if you're wondering, like, why do I have some weird Shopify screenshots over here? I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Don't worry. Okay, so that's the first thing that I wanted to get across to you. Now, the second thing that I wanted to get across to you is not every niche is created equally for each person, right? So you have the niche and then you have the person over here, right? Now, every person is different. And what this basically means is you need to identify where you have competitive advantage. This is probably the most important thing. And I want to get into now why I chose the niches that I chose. So I have run 2 agencies, right? I've run Centrosite, and then I'm now running GrowthTube. So Centrosite, which is my previous agency, which I sold, we got it to about 87K per month MRR, and our biggest month was about $112 cash collected because people paid upfront and things like that, right? Now, this agency was in the e-commerce space, okay? It was basically Facebook and TikTok ads for e-commerce businesses, right? Now, GrowthTube is the one that I started a couple months ago, and this is pretty much YouTube content and YouTube ads for info businesses, okay? So people who sell courses or consultants or anything like that, right? Now, the question is, why did I choose these niches? Because e-commerce is by far the worst niche possible. Like, it's one thing I'll tell you, if you're a beginner, try not to go for e-com, right? It's the worst niche because it's highly, highly competitive, highly, highly saturated, and also the service delivery is very, very complicated, which is going to be a point that I give you in a little bit. But for now, let's just go through the story so I can explain why I made the decisions that I did. So I chose e-commerce not because I saw some guy on YouTube saying, hey, you should do e-com, or I saw a million other agencies doing e-com, which is why I thought I should do it. I chose e-com because I had what is called competitive advantage. So if you know my story, before getting into the agency space, I built an app, which is not relevant here, but then I went into dropshipping. Okay, so I did a lot of dropshipping. I probably did dropshipping for the better part of 3 years. All I did is dropshipping. And I, in these 3 years, had a lot of success. So I spoke at Shopify events. My biggest month was about $1 million, right? Now, $1 million sounds great, but this was over Black Friday in, I think, 2019 or 2018. So it was like 5% profit margins, which is terrible because ads were so expensive. This is, again, why e-com is not the best business if you're a beginner. But anyways, that was my biggest month. I got to a point where I was busy selling, scaling, and working on multiple brands at the same time, trying to become an aggregator in the space. But again, none of that matters for you. The only thing that I'm trying to establish here is I knew e-commerce very well. I knew the niche very well. I had a bunch of friends who were all e-com owners. I spoke at the event, so I knew a lot of the Shopify staff. I knew the ins and outs of building a store, running brands, working with freelancers and factories and all of those things. I had built and scaled lots of them. I'd run lots of ads. And on top of that, I had done it successfully. Keyword being successfully. So as a result, I had dozens and dozens of these. These are just 2 random ones I I just copy and pasted from a presentation I made a while ago. But like these are screenshots of like actual results of my brand. The biggest brand that I ever built was Fashion the X, right? And here's just some screenshots of like some of the Instagram stuff that we had coming in, and then some of the Shopify notifications. Now I like using these two because like I want to prove that this was an actual brand, because a lot of people fake this stuff, which is why I have the Instagram as well. So you can see we actually did customer service. But anyways, you can see like we had multiple orders coming in. And this was a good case study. So when I went to go speak to other e-com owners to say, hey, let me run your ads for you, I had competitive advantage because even though I had a lot of competition, even back then, everyone would go with me. And the reason they did is not because I was good at sales and all these things. Yes, that helped. But mostly it was because I was another e-com founder myself. I lived and breathed e-com. I knew their problems. I knew their solutions. I knew their backend. I knew what they were doing. They trusted me because of it. And also I had results to back it up. Okay, so for me, I had huge competitive advantage against other agencies. So that's why it made sense to go for this niche. And that's why it was successful, right? Now, in the same sense, GrowthTube. Obviously, I am making YouTube content like what you're watching here. And I also run Systems and Profit, which is an education business, right? Where we help agency owners, as I mentioned. And again, like I'm not trying to pitch you anything here. I know a lot of people run away from the videos. Like we have an offer, but I'm not trying to pitch you, right? So again, like I am my own customer and we've gotten incredible results for myself and for my business. And so I can go to other info owners and say, hey, let me do the same thing for you. And that is where this comes into play, which again is why it's working, because I have competitive advantage. And if you look at any successful agency, you'll usually find that they have some form of competitive advantage. Or if you don't have competitive advantage, you have to chase passion, right? And this is the thing that I want to add into here is competitive advantage or passion. Because I understand for many of you, you're probably, in the beginning stages of this, which means you don't yet have competitive advantages to stack on top. So then at least go for passion. Because here's the thing, and I want to use this as a clear example. I have a lot of friends who are literally running 7-figure agencies in the real estate space, right? The real estate is a very good niche to be in, and I see a lot of success. Now, I know for a fact, if I was to jump into this space, I would fail. Like I know it. And the reason is because I just don't care about real estate. The idea of buying lots of properties and things outside of like the investment opportunity, it just bores me. Like I'm not a views person or a house person. So like, I just don't care about real estate. And so I don't want to talk about real estate. I don't want to learn about real estate. And so I know if I'm having to sell marketing to real estate owners, which is pretty much talking to the real estate agents about marketing stuff, houses, like learning everything between just listed and just sold and implementing all this stuff, I know for a fact it's going to completely kill my drive. And because my drive is low, my results are going to be low as well, which means I'm just going to suck, right? And that is going to be conveyed across on my sales calls, in my meetings, in my Slack messages, in everything. And so I know that even though this is a golden niche, for me, I would suck, I would fail, right? And that's what I want to come across with you here is it's not about the niche. It's about what niche makes sense for you. E-com and info made sense for me, but for someone who, literally lives and breathes real estate, they have always been interested in real estate. They have family members who are real estate owners or agents or whatever. They grew up on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Like that's what got them into this whole space. Then for you, maybe this is a good niche, right? Because even if you don't have a lot of tangible results, you at least have passion. And when you have passion, you should know a lot about it. And so because you know a lot about it, that conveys across in your messaging, right? And also what we need to do here is we need to make sure, and this is the third thing that I want to talk about, is that you are not running away from pain, okay? This is a very big thing. So what people don't understand when it comes to selecting a niche or, doing any of this stuff is everything works on an exponential curve, okay? So, if we were to draw out a graph, here's how everything works, right? When it comes to the agency game. In the beginning, what happens is people choose a niche, and what happens is they get their first little sense of exponential growth. And the reason is because here in the beginning, there's very, very easy things that people do which give them an immediate sense of dopamine and quick results. So what happens is when someone chooses a niche, what happens is the first thing they do is they build a website, and then they build a logo, and then they come up with an offer, and they maybe build like a Slack channel, and they do all these things. And what this does is it gives them an immediate sense of accomplishment and an immediate sense of this niche is working. And so their dopamine levels spike and they get super, super happy, right? So again, they get that first sense of growth and they think, wow, this is the niche. I've nailed it. Like I've done it. I'm going to start making 7 figures. And then what happens is we go into this phase that makes or breaks success, right? And that's outreach, because no matter which niche you choose, outreach just sucks, right? You got to understand that whether you are selling to real estate or e-com or info or whatever, outreach is just terrible, right? And not terrible because you want to learn to love that pain and enjoy it. So let's not use the word terrible, but it's definitely mentally draining and it's tough. And if you can get through that, you can make the niche successful. But what happens is over here, we get this exponential curve, right? So again, like flat lines, and then it kind of scales. And all business growth is these hockey stick curves that you'll see here, right? And then it probably flatlines again, and then you go like this again. Now, what happens is most people get, as I said, this immediate sense of growth and happiness, and everything is like quick wins and all is good. They've got a nice new website, a nice new offer, everything's great. But now they actually have to do outreach. And this is where slowly but surely people fall off, right? People give up here and they think, hey, maybe the problem is not what am I doing? It's the service. So then they run into Facebook ads, and then from there they jump into Google ads, and then they're doing this and then they're doing that. Or they go a little bit further and then they realize, oh no, this niche is not for me. And then they do something else, right? They go to e-com, and then they jump to info, and then they go to real estate. And I literally have worked with people where, they come to me and they've worked in like 4 or 5 different services a year. They've operated in like 6 niches, like everything's just all over the show. And what I often just tell them is, look at this graph. This is what you're doing. Because every time you give up, what happens is you literally just create a new graph, because every time you change niches, you start the process again. Right? You build a website, you create an offer, you make a logo, and again, very quick wins, everyone's happy because it looks like you've got growth. Then you actually have to get into the trenches and do that outreach and do everything again. And so we hit this flat line, and then what happens is people give up again, and then they go into the next niche, right? And this process literally just happens over and over and over and over again. And people get caught in this cycle of growth, give up, growth, give up, growth, give up, and things just go on and on and on, right? Kind of like a trap. And this is the major mistake that I see people doing, is they are running away from pain instead of embracing pain. Because when you can embrace pain for a long enough amount of time, it's just a case of eventually things just stack in your favor. Because what happens here, and again, like I want to keep coming back to this graph because I think it's the easiest way to explain all of this. And once you understand this, wow, the way you look at niches, the way you look at everything is going to change completely, and you'll see that the best niche for you is actually the one that you're already doing, right? That's the answer. If you're looking for like, what's the actual answer to the question of this video? That's the answer. The best niche is the one that you're doing. And here's why. In this phase, right, where everything is super, super hard, what you are not seeing, and this is what happened, is people mistake cause and effect. What they don't understand is they look at effect, which is, an agency doing 6 figures and 7 figures, and they don't see all of this. Because over here, when you're doing a lot of outreach, and you're in the trenches, you're sending hundreds of cold emails, hundreds of messages, like multiple different outreach systems, and you're not getting clients, what you are not seeing is the internal growth plus awareness that is built up over here. And what that basically means is you are learning more about your niche. You're learning, okay, what copy is working, because you should be testing that with your outreach. You're learning what offer is resonating. Perhaps you're even getting on a couple calls. So you're figuring out objections. You're figuring out what this niche needs, what this niche doesn't need, what they care about, what they don't care about. And you're basically building yourself to a point where you are worthy of getting clients. Because that's the thing. In this phase, like, honestly, you probably know nothing about the niche and nothing about your service. So like, how do you expect to get results? Especially if you choose a very, very difficult niche like e-com, where usually most people who are going to be your clients in either the e-com or the info space, to become your clients, they obviously have to be making some money. Otherwise, how are they going to afford your retainer? And in order for them to make money, they probably have already learned a little bit about ads. So you're speaking to people that probably, if you're in this stage, know more about the service than you do. So how do you expect to close them, right? Silly. But what happens is these wins step up on top of each other over and over and over. And eventually you become worthy of these clients. And that's when everything just like clicks. Right? It's like literally like an overnight thing that happens, right? And I can't tell you how long this period happens. It depends how long are you putting in the work for, what's the niche, there's many factors that play into it here, right? And the same thing is for me. Like, my journey with my agency was linear, but what people forget is before that, I spent years, literally these 3 years, learning about ecom, right? And then I started building SAP, and I figured out everything for myself before I actually delivered it as a service. Now, what I want to be very clear here is I'm not telling people, hey, if you want to work with the e-com space, go build a bunch of dropshipping stores. Or if you want to work with the info space, go build a course. I'm not telling you to do that, because that's going to take a long time, and you can shortcut a lot of this success. What I am just saying here is the fourth thing is stick with it, okay? Just stick with it and just let these wins compound on top of each other, and make sure that you're iterating through the niche properly. Okay, because that's another thing that people don't seem to understand is they just do outreach, but they have no they have no system for how they are doing the outreach. They're not tracking different copy. They're not tracking response rate, reply rates, like interaction rates. They're just doing it. And that's why they're stuck in a trap of just like doing the same thing and nothing's working, because they're not taking the time to analyze and make improvements so that they can consistently improve and improve. So stick with the niche that you're in, provided that you either have some competitive advantage or a passion, right? And this is the thing that I would tell you to do. If you are starting a new agency, or you genuinely do believe that your niche just sucks or you just don't like it, because I've also worked with a bunch of people where, they built a 6-figure or low 5-figure agency in a space, and they just realized, hey, I really, really don't like this niche. I don't like these clients that I'm having to deal with. I want to change. And that's fine. Then there's a perfect valid reason to do what is called niche hopping, which is jumping from niche to niche. But a key litmus test to pass this through, if I was to boil everything that I'm saying here into a quick little formula on, how to identify the right niche, it is first and foremost, make sure that you have competitive advantage and make sure that you have passion about it. Okay. The reason I sold my agency for many reasons, one of them was just because I just didn't care about e-com anymore. Like I just don't, right? So I lost passion. So because I lost passion, everything that I started to notice with myself went down because I just didn't care about the space anymore, right? So make sure you have competitive advantage and make sure that you have passion. Now, if you don't have competitive advantage, double down on passion. Absorb everything you can in that niche to become competitive advantage where you actually have a lot of knowledge, right? Because there's two ways to get competitive advantages. Either go do it and learn all the skills, or become like a sponge and absorb as much knowledge about a niche as you can so that it shows and so that you have conviction. I often see people where what happens is usually in the beginning of their agency journey, right, they land their first client, and usually they land their first client for like $1,000, right? And then 6 months later, they land another client and they sell them the exact same service, the exact same niche, but they can sell it for like 3K. So how does someone go from charging 1K to 3K? Simply put, conviction in their offer and passion plus competitive advantage. Because the difference between these two people is this is the agency owner at like 1 month of his journey, and this is at 6 months. And the only difference that's happened between this time frame is he's built up a little bit of confidence because he's actually delivered the service, he's got a client, but also he spent so much time absorbing himself in that niche that he can show it. When you chat to him, you can feel, okay, this is someone who's been in the space for a very long time. The words they articulate, the way that they carry themselves, like the things that they say carry across incredibly, incredibly importantly. Okay, so we've got competitive advantage and passion. The second thing is just as a litmus test, if you're not going for like e-com or info, any of those, but you're going for local businesses, so we're talking like dentists, like all those things, try and make sure that whatever they are selling is over $500. Okay, because here's the thing. If you're working with like restaurants, you have to sell a lot of whatever meal or whatever thing they've put together for you to actually make profit. And that's not ideal, right? So make sure that whatever they're selling is over 500. So like think of high ticket contractors, roofers, things like that. Really, really powerful. Third, stick with it and become a sponge, right? Learn everything you possibly can about it so that it shows. With that being said, guys, I'll see you in the next video. And if you do want our help to implement some systems into your agency, book a call with me directly below, and I'll chat to you soon.